Great. I think we will get started.
Hello
from
PR.
Bolivia. Great. Hey, Brazil and Bolivia. Great. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm sure there are a few more people coming in, but let's get started since you guys were so punctual. So yeah, just a quick reminder then to keep your cameras off and your audios on mute so we can get the best connection possible. And other than that, let's get started. So I would like to welcome our guest tonight, who is Antonio Fragoso. He is a creative director at TikTok New York. Antonio, I'm going to do a quick background. Like this, we can get straight into the meat. So Antonio, he always loved commercials more than the shows. But at the time, he thought that advertising was for artistic people who knew how to draw. So he ended up working in business and marketing at Procter & Gamble. And when he was doing a master's, a professor opened his eyes up to copywriting. And since he had lots of notebooks with stories, poems, and written personal work, he decided to start completely fresh in advertising. Now, fast forward a few/many years later, he is a creative at TikTok, which is so cool. So thank you so much for being here, Antonio. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad to be here.
Awesome. So let's start with sort of the big question of the night, which is, I think, what everyone is so curious about, because TikTok has really sort of exploded in the last year. So start by telling us just kind of like, what is it like, your day-to-day job at TikTok? You're surrounded by millions of creators and you're a creative yourself. So what is that experience like? Tell me about that. Describe your job to us, and then we will go from there.
Oh boy, where do I start? Actually, I have one of my team members here, Andy. Shout out to Andy here. I'm gonna give you a shout out here. What we do a lot of things. First of all, we are part of the global business marketing, which is the branch of TikTok that it's specifically tailored to advertising and how we bring brands and creative agencies to the platform in a natural and real way. As you guys have seen, if you scroll down on TikTok, a lot of the things that you see there feel real. So if you start putting advertising that feels like regular advertising, you're going to lose people. So a lot of our day-to-day includes educating and inspiring these brands and agencies to actually create on TikTok and learn how to create. Sometimes we do work with brands and agencies directly to create really good TikTok campaigns and help them like build that creative. But I can tell you guys that there's not a day-to-day because everything changes. And again, Andy is not gonna let me lie around here. Our days are completely different because it's such a new brand that we're building it, and it's really fun. It's really interesting having a say on such a big brand.
That's amazing. And did you sort of ever imagine yourself then working at a company like TikTok? Because, you know, traditionally when people, I don't know if everybody here knows, but Antonio is a former student of Miami Ad School. And typically it's not a place, I suppose, where you might initially imagine yourself working at. You probably thought, well, agencies. So what was that transition like? Like, how did that happen? And then I want to ask you for a few examples of successful TikTok campaigns, because I'm very curious about that. But tell me first about sort of that moment of transition. And also, when was it? Because there was also the pandemic where TikTok really took off. So how was that for you?
Well, it's not like a very nice story about it, of how I started looking for a job. Like, I'm really happy that I ended up at TikTok. But obviously, in the middle of the pandemic, there were layoffs at the agency I was in. Fortunately, I wasn't part of the layoffs, but still, the environment was really stressful because every day I would wake up fearing that I would lose my job by the end of the day. And obviously I started like looking
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah. So I started looking for a job and happened to find this job posting on TikTok, and I applied. Like I used the app, but I was like really not that into it at the moment. And I got the first interview. It went really well. I was excited. They sent my book and my resume to the team that was hiring, and the recruiter, she came back and she said like, hey, we actually the things that you don't want to hear, we don't think you're like a good fit for this position, but there's another position that's opening in a couple of weeks that we think you're like a very good candidate, and would you like to apply to that one, and so on and so on. I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And a few months after, a million interviews after, I got a TikTok. They just created the Global Creative Lab, which Andy and I are part of. And I was like the
so
first.
When did they start this? So they started this when? Last year?
Last year. I don't know like the exact date, but it was like
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, like a month or something, when they're like structuring this like global business marketing unit, and the TikTok for Business brand. And yeah, like the interviews and everything. So it happened all during the pandemic. Everything, my life at TikTok has been over Zoom. I've never met anyone from my team in real life. Andy, like if you guys scroll, I'm gonna keep mentioning Andy, like that guy over there. Like I've only seen that thumbnail over the past 7 months, and it's been different kind of job. It's been exciting, but at the same time, it's challenging because as a creative, you like to bounce ideas, you like to like be playful with your partners, with your teammates, and like like just bounce ideas. And doing it over Zoom or over like our chat system, it's incredibly challenging, but at the same time, it's been fun. It's been quite a fun ride. And yeah, it's weird getting a job during the pandemic and not meeting anyone.
Yeah, well, hopefully, that'll pass one day, and the reunion would be amazing with you and all the people you've been working with for a few months now. I want to ask you now a bit more specifically, because it's very interesting what you were talking about, sort of you guys being that bridge for brands to really help them, as you said, learn how to create for TikTok. So can you give us sort of a couple of examples, if you can, that you think worked, that you were like, oh, wow, I thought this was really cool. Just a few cases so we kind of see what you guys are creating right now. I remember the very first, I think, branded campaign on TikTok a long time ago, and I think it was Ralph Lauren, but it was a very small, like it wasn't, I don't think it was a big campaign. It was just one video. But anyway, tell me.
I think, whoa, there's one. I don't know if this would be considered as a full ad campaign, but it was like a very big push. We did a very, very big push for Black History Month, just actually that ended up last week. And it was a massive campaign that included creators, brands, and celebrities all talking about, obviously, Black culture, which is really, really good. And I think like the reach and the authenticity of that campaign was amazing. Again, a lot of the things that we've seen on TikTok that actually like create a lot of buzz are things that feel natural and feel real. everybody should know by now the dog face video, the skater video with the ocean spray. That was not sponsored by the brand, and the sales team and the creative lab had to go, like, we went to the client, Ocean Spray, and was like, hey, you need to capitalize on this because this is something that you need to do. And so it's more about like real. One thing that I do like, it's when brands make TikTok their platform and like break the mold of whatever they're doing everywhere else. One brand that we love, I personally love, is the Washington Post, the newspaper that you would see. They're like thinking about newspaper and content would be boring, but if you go to their TikTok account, they're killing it. It's fun, it's entertaining. Sometimes they retell the news, sometimes it's just playful. And they did, well, the guy that's managing the account did a spoof on like a Jurassic Park using one of our effects. And I remember that one of the comments that like sparked a lot of interest in me was that like the Washington Post is the one that like discovered Watergate back in the day, and now does this Jurassic Park. So it's also a way like for brands to revamp their image and break the molds of what traditional advertising is. TikTok, aside from our creative community,
and connect with a younger audience, I'm assuming, because I think, as far as I know, that TikTok still caters to sort of a younger audience, although I expect that is changing and will probably keep changing as time goes by. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You'd be surprised. I cannot share demographics, but you'd be surprised the reach of the audience. And most importantly, it's because
really
TikTok is full screen, is sound on. So the minute you open the app, you're immersed in a full screen video. So that's something that a lot of other platforms would like to have, your full attention for at least 15 seconds. And it's something unique to TikTok. So here, every second counts, and like you'll be surprised. Like we have parents, grandparents. We have a lot of subcultures inside TikTok that are amazing. There's like a Harry Potter. There's cottage norm. No, there's like a million. Like even witch dog. There's a million of subcultures that have their niche audiences, and there are brands that are learning and doing great work speaking to them, and it's like an untapped audience.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, no, that definitely, but it's actually a lot of like older people that I know are already on TikTok too. So yeah. So I wanted to circle back. Of course, we're going to get back to more TikTok, but I wanted to kind of ask you a bit about your career post-graduation from Miami Ad School, because I think that's I mean, you do have a very interesting journey, right? Like you left your country, you went to a school in a different country, and nowadays you've been working in the US for a few years already. So can you kind of describe to me what that experience was like post-graduation? How was it? Like, what was the job situation? What was the visa situation? Because I also think that helps a lot of people sometimes who are thinking, maybe not now in this situation, but post-pandemic, maybe would like to plan to maybe one day move to a different country.
Yeah.
we have to be hopeful, right?
We have to be hopeful, yeah. I just want to leave my apartment. That's my goal for this year.
I know.
No, I think I've always loved New York. So when the opportunity of coming to New York happened at Miami Ad School, I took it. And at first, like foreign student, exchange student coming here, to a very expensive city, I thought at first it was going to be, no, you can only come here for 3 months. And then it's like, okay. And then those 3 months became 6 months, and those 6 months became 9 months. And suddenly I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to stay here and work with that. And during my first internship at Miami Ad School, I basically decided that I was going to do anything possible to stay here. So I started to overwork myself to not a healthy point, like I don't recommend that, but I worked on every brief that my creative directors gave me, and I tried to poke my nose in any other project, like trying to produce as much work as possible. And I always give this advice to my students that even if it's like, don't dismiss a Facebook post, an Instagram post, or well, now like a TikTok video, because in the end, when you're a student and if you want to stay in another country, that's produced work. That's work that's out there. That's not spec that you can show on your book and show on people is like, hey, at least I have the basic elements that you need on a junior copywriter or a junior art director. Like I know how the real world behaves. So I like try doing that. I was fortunate enough to have a couple of pieces with Miami Ad School, a student that won a bunch of student awards. So that was like another plus. And after that, after I graduated, I had enough material to apply for a work visa here. And all my savings went into that visa. It was like a all or nothing shot. Fortunately, it paid off. I started freelancing a little bit. Then at one agency, the Massimo Goldstein, where I was working, my boss there, after freelancing for a week, he was like, "Hey man, we love you. We want you to stay. So stay here." And that's how my full-time employee path began. And to all the people that have asked me how and everything is, I got lucky and I busted my ass. And I can tell you guys that it's not impossible. It's hard. It's definitely hard. And don't be discouraged if it doesn't happen if it doesn't happen at first, because sometimes, and it happens, a lot of agencies don't want to pay for a visa for a junior that costs the same amount of money of a creative director. So that said, if you're really good, and if an agency or like or brand or TikTok wants you, they're gonna find the way to get that visa. So it's more about you being the creative that they want, rather than you trying to look for work at the agencies, if that makes any sense. If you have talent,
it does totally. It's like it's finding the right fit for you, right?
Yeah. Yes.
For the person who's really going to value you and your work. And I mean, it really paid off, because I have the list of awards that you've gotten, and then it's like Cannes, one show, New York, DC. I mean, and I remember in one of our conversations that we had in the past, you mentioned sort of that then once you entered the workplace, you were, I don't know if you were focusing more, but you were working more on sort of ideas that sell rather than ideas that win awards. I don't know if you remember that conversation that you have. And it's something that's been popping up a lot with creatives, where like there's phases of your life as a creative where you, especially if you need a visa, like it's so important to have awards. And then there's other moments where you're like, actually now for a while, I want to produce ideas that sell, ideas that connect with people and that aren't necessarily geared towards awards, right? Like, can you, and I mean, I don't know if it's sensitive, but at TikTok, are awards something that even go through their minds, or is it like, that's not even a thing?
Well, first of all, yes. I obviously, who doesn't love to win an award? It's like super rewarding, super makes you really, really happy to find that other people think your idea is great. That's super rewarding. My only thing, and that this happened when I joined the workforce like as like a full-time creative, was that a lot of creative was spec work that you would never see in the real world. And it was amazing and the ideas were incredible and all that. But when I started my career, I was obviously trying to sell that kind of ideas to a client. And I was like, yeah, but we need to sell this product. We need to do this. So I quickly learned, and again, this is my point of view. I never tried to say like, this is what works. This is the universal truth. My way of thinking about creativity is that how can you do the best creative that sells, but still is a really good creative? So finding that balance of putting out there your best work possible within the constraints that it's something that will help the brand, like awareness or sales or whatever it is, that's like the best work possible. And if it wins an award, great. And if it doesn't, just go on and get the next idea. But also at the same time, as a creative, you cannot become a salesman, you want it or not, because you need to learn how to talk to the clients, how to read their minds, how to recite the words that they want to hear, so they will buy your campaign or your idea. And that's true for any like pitch deck or a creative idea deck. Like you have to tailor it to a point that it even has the words that they want to hear inside the deck. If they have it, it's like, that's good. One of my previous creative directors gave me like a really good advice that like try putting an idea that makes them feel comfortable, then another idea that it's like more out there, and then another idea that like basically goes completely out there. So at least they saw what they wanted to see, and you can push them a little further and a little further. And it's also like you're part of a salesman job that like every time you present new creative, you try to push them further and further and further until they do the idea that you wanna do. And yeah. And on TikTok,
no, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, TikTok. I think right now, as a platform, we're more focused on building the brand because we're having a great momentum, and we just want to educate and inspire people to actually do great creative on TikTok. And if that wins awards, by all means, we're happy about that. But right now we want to help people realize the potential of the platform and like the capabilities, the creative capabilities of our community. So yeah, like awards might come in the future. I don't know, but right now it's like, let's create the work that wins awards if needed.
Definitely. And I think it's so interesting how the format also informs the storytelling. So if you have like, let me know if I'm breaking up a little bit. I heard that my connection is a little, can you hear me well?
Yeah, now? I can hear you well.
Okay, perfect, great, I moved. So, if you have, like you said, 15 seconds to tell a story, like it completely changes how you think about a story. And if you think about it in terms of a campaign, I just think it's so crazy how the landscape has shifted and how the careers have shifted in terms of opportunities and the number of formats that you can work with. And that's something that I want to ask you, because in our previous conversations and from what I know from your work, you really seem to experiment with format. You seem to make lots of different types of work. So just a few that I know, for example, you have, and maybe you could talk about them just a little bit. It's Google Remind, I remember, was a great idea. And also the one about the postal service, that you have a project that's in a museum nowadays. So it's kind of a crazy, I mean, I guess you're the right fit for TikTok because you seem to have this experimentation with format. So I'd like you to tell me about that, if that was something, a decision that you made consciously as a creative. And then I have a follow-up question to that. Let me let you get to that first.
Okay. Yeah, I would say it was a conscious decision, because that is where my creativity excels at. I love writing film. I'm not the greatest at writing film, but I would love to have more film pieces in my book, but naturally I'm more inclined to technology and like discovering and like trying to break, like trying to find new ways of using certain things. So the more experience I got, the more tailored to like, okay, how can I break into technology? How can I use creativity? Because it was like something that was easy for me. Again, that said, that another like advice that I give my students when they're building their portfolios is build a portfolio that reflects the work that you want to do. So if you want to do film or if you want to do traditional advertising, show that you can do traditional advertising. If you want to become more digital, or if you want to become more like feel good ideas, show that, because those are like, that's going to tailor your career. Personally, at first I thought I was going to try to do film. I did a couple of pieces that I like, but technology was something like a better fit for me, and I love it. And it was like, that's what has gotten me here. So yeah, you can choose that. And if that's not what you want, my best advice that I can give you is practice. Read as many books as you can, watch or like as many examples as you can, and keep practicing so you can tailor your skills to that.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was you said something that I think you said Miami Ad School taught you that don't let talent be the only thing that people say about you, that it's your hard work that gets you there. I think it was you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You said something like that,
Yeah.
that I thought was very interesting. I was like, yeah, it's true, you know, because maybe someone who's, I'm not saying that about you, but like maybe someone's not the most talented person in the world, but they work so hard that eventually they even overtake the one who is relying on talent alone. So, you know, it's just such a great work ethic, and it's true.
Yeah, and I can pride myself of never, I've never been the most creative person in the room. Like right here, right now, I'm not the most creative person in this room. And that's something I take pride on, because every time I work with people that are more creative than I am, I learn from them. And again, that's one of the things that I also love when teaching my students, is because they are way more creative than I am, and they can teach me things that I don't know. Now on TikTok, I just opened the app and there are a million people that are way more creative than I am. So it's also like a learning experience. But it's true, like I'm not the most talented creative. I just like to work, and creativity like sparks something in me. So it's kind of like, I'm gonna say, like kind of like my drug. When I'm feeling creative, I'm hyperactive, and I love that feeling. Very high. I get that. So when you don't have the talent, yes, you have to overcompensate with hard work. And if you have the talent,
but I think it's safe to say that there's not one person that has no talent either, right? It's like everyone has some talent that they can build up on and work hard at and make it better and better and better.
Yeah. And if you have the talent, like, keep using it, because actually one of my first teachers at Miami Ad School, shout out to Queso, he told me that creativity is a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it's not gonna develop. So even if you're super talented right off the bat, if you don't keep being creative or using that creativity or pushing your boundaries, it's gonna wind down.
I agree. And speaking of boundaries, I kind of wanted to ask you too, because you've been in the copywriting, I suppose, business for a while now, and you have lots of copywriter friends, I'm sure. I like a lot of people, for example, when they're starting school or thinking about being a copywriter, they might still tend to think that, like, okay, so I'm only going to work in an agency, but obviously you have a completely different path. You're at TikTok. So what are sort of different places or areas that you think copywriters can look at to work nowadays? Because in my opinion, from my perspective, the landscape has changed so much and the sky seems to be the limit. Like, you could be a social media writer, you could be a long copywriter. I don't know. There's so many different companies. Can you describe sort of how you see that, please? If you see something, huh?
No, I think, yes, like each one of those requires like a different set of skills. And I think, or at least what my understanding of copywriting is you don't have to have the best words out there. You just have to know how to use the words. And if the message is not right, you just rewrite it until it feels right. And the more experience you get kind of like this feeling that, oh, this feels right. This sounds right. And that doesn't matter, like if it's like long form copy, social media, or anything. It just like comes to like, oh, this feels right. This feels like right on point. Does that answer the question? Maybe not.
Yes, totally. It's just that since I moved locations, I'm just having someone help me to move the charger for the computer, but it's all good now. Yes, perfect. So now I want to circle back into sort of your transition into being a creative director in a non-agency environment. So can you tell us about this experience, how it was for you? And also about what qualities you think were important to make that jump. We've talked a little bit about format already, but if there's anything else that you think can be helpful for a person who's interested in sort of making that jump.
First of all, curiosity. You get, I've seen a lot of creatives that are set in their ways, and that's fine. But when they don't want to learn the new trends or the new platforms, or they don't have this curiosity to keep evolving, they're gonna be great at their craft, but they're not gonna be able to like do more than that. So I think like the best one is curiosity. Always try to learn something new every day, even if it's just why cats sleep all day or something like that. Like, even if it's something stupid, try to learn something new every day. And like, curiosity is gonna move you farther away than anything else, because you are gonna learn how to do things. And jumping from that, it's scary. It is. But also trust your gut. Your instincts are gonna teach you. Like, I've said to everybody that, like, when I took the offer at TikTok, it felt right. It was like, I needed to do this. It's like, And as scared as I was, and as I knew that it was like a jump from the agency world to the tech and brand world, it just felt right. And I haven't regretted that decision ever since.
Yeah, and I think it's so cool that it can inspire other, people, other copywriters, for example, who envision themselves doing something like that one day. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Whenever we open doors, it's really cool. Speaking of which, there's a piece of advice also that you talked about before. I even wrote it down from one of our previous conversations because I think it was such a good advice that you mentioned, that in terms of like a portfolio now. You said, I'm going to read this like this, I don't get it wrong, that when you're in school, you're there to learn how to create ideas. A junior has to produce ideas. And you mentioned that about it being a creative muscle that needs to be exercised. But as a senior creative, it's okay for sort of the output of ideas to go down, but then the expectation that more ideas are good goes up. So, and then I think I remember you saying something like, always always put your portfolio 1 degree higher. So like if you're a junior, you make your portfolio as if you're a mid-level. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought it was an interesting approach.
Yeah, it's plain and simple, if your portfolio looks like a junior portfolio, you're always going to stay as a junior. But yeah, your portfolio, aside from showing what's the best work that you can do, it also shows that you can sell that work, you can actually produce that work, you have the ideas and everything, and that evolves the more senior you are. So as you mentioned, at first, when you graduate and when you're a junior, you're still new. You don't have like that experience, that gut feeling, that knowledge of clients and the agency world at all. So you just produce ideas, like put down as many ideas as you can and rely on your creative directors and the more senior creatives that have a little more of a feeling of what the client is looking to actually like filter if you have good ideas or not. The more experience you get, you start learning how to filter that ideas and say like, okay, this is good, this might work, this is not, and everything. So you're still gonna be putting down as many ideas as you can, but you have that filter of like, oh, this is not a good idea, or this might be a good idea if we work on this, and so on and so on. And that's something that literally just experience gives you. Some people get that experience way before than other people. That's why like there are a lot of like very young creative directors that got that experience. And also, when you're becoming more of a creative director, you're not just seeing the next campaign. You're seeing where the brand is going for, like what's the objective in the long run, like how this campaign that you're putting out tomorrow is going to help the brand 3 years, 4 years from now. So your perspective, it's more open, and yeah, you don't have like that output of as many creative ideas, but you have the you know which ideas are right. And it's also like sorry, it's also a lot of experience.
Sorry.
And a lot of like your own instinct that keeps developing.
That's so interesting that I hadn't thought about it that way before, but yeah, it's more of this long-term vision as a creative director. You're not thinking like, okay, how do I deliver this next week? No, it's like how, I don't know, what concept are we going to create today that's still going to be applicable like 3 years from now or something like that. That's an interesting approach. So I think that's kind of a good segue into another question that I have about TikTok, because like you said, you guys are growing so fast and building so much so fast. So I have a 2-part question about that. Like, one is, what are you looking forward to as the creative in TikTok, sort of mid to long term? What are your personal, if you have any, projects and goals? And also then for TikTok as a company and whatever you can reveal, as the landscape continues to change, sort of what are the expectations for the company? So tell me a little bit about that, your expectations and goals, and then sort of what you can share about what the company is envisioning for the next 2 years.
My expectation is, like so far, like keep being as happy as I am with being a creative inside TikTok. For me, I think I reached a point in my career that I want to do meaningful work for me. It's like a balance of life balance that I want to, like, if I'm gonna burn the midnight oil, I want to burn the midnight oil on something that like I'm really passionate about. So right now it's like I am at that place, and my expectation on TikTok is I'm gonna be here for as long as I'm feeling that that passion, and I don't see that going away anytime soon because the platform is impressive. I'm in love with them. I think I have almost a tattoo of them, of their brand in my somewhere. and
you even have coworkers supporting you here during your live, so it's clearly a supportive environment too.
And the platform, in reality, it's an entertainment platform that has changed the world, because it showed that even if our attention span has diminished from a lot, people still want to be entertained. People still want to feel part of a community. People still want to be to feel inspired and creative. And one of the things I love about TikTok is that it's democratizing creativity. Like it's showing the whole world that they can be creative. And I think, at least I think that's like the main ambition of what TikTok is. This democratization of creativity, showing that anyone can produce content, and real content that everybody wants to watch at some point. And yeah, it's entertainment. It's I don't see it. I personally don't see TikTok as another social media platform. I see it as a pure entertainment platform.
Can you expand a little bit on that? Because that's really interesting on that last part that you said.
Well, I could expand, but I'm just gonna dare all of you to like open the app and watch the first 10 TikToks that you see, and then that's my answer as a whole. You'll find, and that's only like just the first 10. If you go deep into the rabbit hole and you like actually start looking into the subcultures that I mentioned and all the things that are happening, and even like there to comment, there to reply to a creator, there to stitch, to duet, to use one of the effects, and then you'll realize why it's an entertainment platform and not a social media, because you're putting your creative out there, or actually enhancing other people's creative.
Mm-hmm. And doing it together as a community, like
Yep.
you said, it's doing all of that creatively and in a community. So I have a last quick question before our round of quick fire questions. You know, I love those quick fire questions.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, it wasn't even on my script, but I'm curious now, do you do a lot of writing currently in your job? Like, do you do what you would consider copywriting at your job currently? Or is it something that like in the moment, it's, you know, it serves other purposes, let's say, I don't know.
Both.
You don't have to answer it. It's okay. I put you on the spot. Like, this is on the script. If you don't want to answer, it's fine.
No, it's both. there are a lot of like copywriting projects of things that you've seen in the real world and that you will see in the near future. And there are things that are made on the spot that it's more like a strategic decision that you just have to put in like fancy and beautiful words.
Right. So you use it. Right. Got it. Cool. All right. Amazing. So it's our last 10 minutes. So let's go into our round of quick fire questions. If anyone has a question, I completely forgot to say that at the beginning. Sorry, guys. But if anybody has a question, put it in the chat, please, because we need to make sure cameras are off and audio is off. Like this, we have a better connection. So if you guys have any questions, please put it in the chat and I'll read it right away. Okay. Until then, I will continue with my questions, but you guys can interrupt me in the chat. No problem. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you is, what is your thought process behind looking for someone to be on your team, especially now that you're more in sort of a senior? Actually, no, there's a question from someone else. So let's take someone else's question. Gabriel wants to know, what is your best way to be in a creative mode? Thank you for the question, Gabriel.
Open a blank page and start putting stuff on that blank page. I know it can be scary, seeing a blank page and not knowing what to write, but write something stupid, write a word, write a sentence, write the one idea that you had. If you like, I don't know, write that you want to make phones made out of rubber so they bounce on the floor when you drop them and they don't break apart. And you start from there and just let it go. Don't filter your ideas. Don't judge them. Don't think, oh, this is bad. Just put them down on paper and let your creative brain like start and go from there. And after you're done, so you're tired and everything, then you put your business strategy, boss brain or whatever you want to call it, and review those ideas, and then you start killing them, but don't kill them right off the bat. So just get into that. I also recommend that find a creative routine that sparks your interest. I, for example, have like a bunch of websites that first thing in the morning, I open them and there are like some news, some advertising, magazines, technology, memes pages. Like I just like read everything in the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes of my day, just to like distract me a little bit and then go from there.
Awesome. And if the person is more visual, they could like doodle instead of writing. They could also doodle or do like vision boards or things like that, right?
Yeah.
We have another question. So from Lilia, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She says, as someone who's more or less behind the scenes of TikTok, what would you recommend a brand new user of TikTok? What is the best way to be successful, or I guess to go viral on the platform as a creative / musician? Ooh, insider info. I love it.
The best way is being real. People react to things that feel real, that feel in the moment, that don't feel staged. So that's like the best way that I can tell you. The other one is trial and error. You never know what it's gonna become viral. The good thing about TikTok is that your video can be shown to anyone in the world. Like and you just need one person to like it and share it and comment on it or do edit, and that's how virality starts. The dog face video, there's no science behind that one. Like literally, it's just a guy skateboarding, having the best time of his life. And it felt so natural, so pure, so real that everybody like wanted to do the same, wanted to get that same feeling. So it's trial and error, just keep creating, feel, let yourself be creative. Like if you put a song out there, like as a musician, if you put a song out there, put another one tomorrow and another one, or like a different pieces of the same song, or find ways of like where you feel more comfortable playing. If you're at your bedroom or if you are at a park or something, like just keep trying. And there's not like a success formula for virality. It's just that make it feel real.
Amazing. Sophia has the question now. She says, how do you keep the balance between all the authentic user-generated content that is on TikTok and the content that brands create that sometimes can be felt as artificial and pre-produced? What do you recommend for brands in order to still keep it real and authentic and to not lose the natural spark?
The best and easiest way would be rely on the creators, trust the creators, work alongside the creators. They already know the platform and they already know, like a lot of them have already built an audience, have built a structure of how to post. So trust them, work with them. And when you go with them, don't go with the typical influencer mindset that we have been conditioned to have. They're not influencers, they're creators. They are there to be your partner. And like you can trust them. It's like, hey, how can I make this? And build the script with them, build the video with them. And that's gonna create more, it's gonna feel way more real than if you go with the creator and tell them, I want you to do this.
Yeah, then that's just replicating sort of a more traditional way of doing it. So I have a few more questions. Let's try to get to all of them. Marco wants to know if you have any advice for the ones who are looking to study copywriting at Miami Ad School. I'm sure you have tons of those, so I'll let you take it.
I would say read a lot, deconstruct. First of all, read a lot. The more you read, the more you're gonna learn how authors play with the sentences. This is one of those you can't unsee moments. If you start reading a book, a really good book that captures your attention, you're gonna see that authors play with the length of their sentences. You have one sentence that's 3 words, then one that's 5. Then they massage you a very long sentence and they go down like 3 and 4 words and everything. So that dynamic unconsciously trains your brain to like what feels right of saying. The other one is look at the ads that you love, the campaigns, print ads, TV ads, film ads, whatever, and deconstruct the script. Like put it down on paper. You've seen it on TV, that's great. Put it down on paper and you're gonna start seeing like how many words you can put in a 30-second spot or a 15-second spot. And second, like what are the words that are actually impacting the ad.
Perfect. And as a former ad school student myself, I'd like to add, get a lot of sleep before you start school, because it's 2 very intense years. It's amazing and so worth it. Sleep before, because once you start until you graduate, you're going to be pulling all-nighters. You're going to be joining a bunch of awards. So you're going to be like crazy, but it's so much fun. So if you're thinking about it, just go for it. We have 2 more questions. One, I think you started to answer already. So someone asked, as a copywriter, where do you get references? So you already mentioned, I guess, books, ads. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yes, anything that gets you out of your comfort zone. If you like seeing Marvel movies, try watching drama, or try watching rom-coms or whatever, something that puts you out of your zone of comfort, even for like websites and news, because you start getting perspectives from different people. And I can share later like the list of websites I look at, but again, that's not like the Bible. I suggest that you create your own references and always put yourself in like this zone of discomfort of looking at new sources.
New references. Yeah, Juanita is asking, I'll get to your question, Camila, in just one second, but since it's the same subject, Juanita asks, what creativity books do you recommend?
Oh boy.
Is there anything sort of off the top of your head? I like very much Big Magic by Liz Gilbert. I really liked that one.
Was like Mr. Whipple. I never know the name of that one. It's like creativity. I'll find it and I'll share it with everybody. That's a good one. Ogilvy on advertising is really good. Let me see.
If you remember, you can always, if it pops up, you can say it.
Yeah.
We have a question from Camila now. She says, okay, hey, Mr. Whipple's quiz. I've never Google it myself after. So Camila wants to know, in a world where we are all creative, quote unquote, what advice do you give so as not to be just one more? So I guess how to stand out as a creative.
Keep working on your creativity and find what type of creativity makes you special. If it's writing, what type of writing? Like find your niche, find your like top abilities. If you're a musician, okay, first what instrument you play, or you sing, then what genre, or are you going to invent a new genre, or like try going from like the macro to the very specific that makes you, you know what, I'm the best creative at playing jazz with an ukulele. Just for saying something, like find that, and like, because you're gonna be the best creative at that, and you're gonna stay the best creative as long as you keep doing the hard work to stay the best creative at that niche part that you are.
Amazing. So we have a last question here. He says, I don't know if you answered this already. If there's anything else that pops up, you can add, or if not, he says, what process do you go through to generate creative ideas? So yeah, I think you mentioned that, right? Like the books.
Don't be afraid.
I think getting out too. It's good to get out too. I don't know if you agree with me, but just like let it go a bit sometimes. Like you're obsessed with an idea and then it's like, just get out, go do something else, do something completely different, and then come back, and then you'll be better, you know, you'll be more fresh.
Yes. Another thing is, this is kind of like an ability that you'll get the more experience you get, but you're going to learn how to put your part of your brain on work mode at all times. So when you're like watching TV, when you're like walking, when you're like at a show or whatever you're doing, in the back of your mind, unconsciously, you're still working on the idea. And then when you get that reference, like, oh, I could do this on this idea. So it's kind of like dividing your mind into two, if that makes sense. But yeah, like first down is just write as many ideas as you can, or draw them, and more will come. You're like, every one of us is like an infinite factory of ideas.
Last question, Guy. I mean, if there's more, put it in now because we have to start wrapping up. Tips would you give me for those days when he can't think of anything creative. I think we've all been there.
Don't work, go outside, do something else, distract you completely, and then your ideas will come. Another one of my teachers, and I think I've seen this in a book a million times. I don't know the source of this, but creativity is intelligence having fun. So when you are really in depth of like something and you're not having fun, you're not gonna be creative. And we all have off days. It's okay. You don't have to bring award-winning ideas every day of your life. Just take a break. Have a Kit Kat.
Spoken like a true copywriter. All right, guys. So I think unless there's any other question, I think we have to wrap it up. We're just over an hour. So I want to thank you so much for being here, Antonio. It was such a great conversation. I loved learning more about TikTok and sort of seeing, particularly for me, it was so interesting to see how you made this jump from like copywriter to creative director and all the differences. So I really want to thank you. I'm sure it was so inspiring for everyone. And for those who are here, we have our next Nomad Talk 2 weeks from now. So check in to see our next guest, and I hope to see all of you guys there. Antonio, any last words?
Just please download TikTok, jump on TikTok, because the more you use the app, I get paid. So do that. This is my shameless promotion of the app.
That's all right. Listen, when you're truly passionate about something, it's authentic to promote it. That's what you're being a creator, not an influencer. All right. So thank you so much, Antonio. Thank you everyone for being here. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. Good night.